Good morning, namaskar and welcome to the Editorial Edge this Monday, the 18th of September 2023. My name is Bhuvan Jha. Right. So this is the program where we take a look at the major news articles of the day, specifically from the examination perspective, and also include the question solving aspect of it. Okay. That is the primary agenda that we look to do here. Three topics that I have for you today. Now, one that was announced late last evening. So I don't expect the newspapers to probably carry this news today. Regardless of that, we'll take a deep dive and look at this topic, which is that in the Gulf of Khambat, okay, so off the coast of Alang in Gujarat, you have found, the Geological Survey of India has found a lot of vanadium deposits, okay. And so if you have been following the mineral aspect, the whole mineral aspect, the critical minerals, atomic minerals, non-atomic minerals, that has been going on in the past 3, 4, 5 months, Government of India has taken a lot of policy measures regarding that. So it is of extreme importance. Now, prior to this, you had vanadium that was found in January 2021, say in Arunachal Pradesh, So obviously it becomes a topic of importance for us. So we'll take a look at that. Gulf of Khambat, vanadium. Number 2 is where we'll go at look at the community forest resource, the CFR, as well as understand, the community forest resource rights, okay. Because of late it has been in the news on and off. And so from the examination perspective again, we'll take a look at the policy, we'll take a look at the criticisms of the policy, and we'll look to solve some questions, right? Thereafter, the third one is epizootic hemorrhagic diseases, right? So this has been in the news, and disease again becomes a primary. Why do we talk about diseases much more in this program, in this daily dose of news analysis? Because as climate change happens, as the effects of climate change become much more visible, you will find disease-borne, vector-borne diseases will become a primary area of concern. Which is why as civil service aspirants, you need to be aware of the diseases that are getting a large thrust, getting all their source of energy, if you so were to understand, from this climate change. So we'll take a look at the EHD. Okay. Now, before I begin the class today, Lekam, good morning. Before I begin the class today, so if you had a look at, the mains papers, GS 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, I'll talk about GS 1. So if you have had a look at the mains papers, if you haven't had, well, StudyIQ did. We did an extensive sessions on, in fact, the GS 1, GS 2, GS 3, GS 4 over the weekend. And one thing that is undeniable is that current affairs no longer is just, something that you are going to read from an article and say, that's all. No more. I have been saying that for quite some time now. And so this GS paper just merely reinforces what I have been saying. That, the question on GS1, let's just, for 2 minutes, if I have to discuss, GS1 paper, the two questions, one question on child cuddling, one question on, what the question was, I believe, on suicide rates among women, okay. Now, you will find many an article written on this, okay. Or the question on climate change and food security. So many articles are written on it, okay. But how many times have we gone ahead and actually understood the concept in depth? That yes, food security has these many angles, climate change has these many angles. These are the effects, at a local, at an individual, at a national and a global level. That flowchart has to be made, okay. And that would comprise, a good preparation. Now, I don't know how many of you are doing it, but I will be showing you the links. If you go ahead and understand the concepts that have been applied in solving the geography related questions in GS1, you will see that this approach is of immense benefit, not just for prelims, obviously, because you'll be covering all the major facts that are there to it, but also figuring out and brainstorming the points that are required to write a good mains answer. And so for many of you might be considering, mains, it's a long way away. I understand that sentiment. But then please understand that you will not convert a seat. Your name will not figure in the merit list unless and until you go ahead and ace mains. Okay, so just focusing on prelims is a myopic viewpoint again. A student and a serious aspirant should avoid that. Okay, Bulbul, Coder, Sachin, good morning guys. All of you are welcome. Let's get started, shall we? Okay, chaliye. So I'll share the link with you. Have a look at those classes. It will help you a lot. Okay, vanadium in Gulf of Khambat. Now this is my Instagram channel, by the way. So it's young. It's just freshly prepared, hot off the tawa. So we are a small group, but then we do a lot of good work. So go ahead, connect with me here. If you have any particular questions related to geography, environment, CSAT, IR, I can help you there. Or if you're looking for some strategy guidance, okay, and understand this, that UPSC has to be prepared in a scientific manner. You just can't go ahead and read books and hope to clear the examinations. Or you can't just read newspapers and hope to clear the examinations. You need to have interpretation, analysis, opinion. And that opinion has to be sound. It has to be based on facts, right? So go ahead. This is my Instagram channel. Whereas this is my Telegram channel where I upload the PDF of this entire lecture. I normally do it say after 12, afternoon, okay? Okay, right, let's get started then. So the first news that I have for you today, vanadium. So in the Gulf of Khambat, just south of Saurashtra, okay? So this is Saurashtra that you're looking at. And this is essentially a Gulf of Khambat, okay? From the geological point of view, a very interesting area, okay? So I am a student of geography. So I do follow this kind of news a lot. And so recently you had a news in Gulf of Khambat, regarding Gulf of Khambat, okay, wherein scientists were able to figure out, researchers went ahead and figured out that this was essentially formed why? Due to the large scale deposition, say, that happened in the previous geological time scale by the rivers Narmada and Tapi, okay. It also say owes its origin to the extension of Deccan Traps, you know, the basaltic flow that followed and Narmada and Tapi's continuous action. Well, this went ahead and it had a large part to do with the formation of Gulf of Khambat, okay. So therein, the Geological Survey of India has found vanadium, right? Now, vanadium, a critical raw material for many industrial applications, it has been found in the sediment samples, right? So, off the coast of Alang in Gujarat, Gulf of Khambat, off the coast of Alang in Gujarat. Alang, a major ship breaking yard. We have discussed this right in the say previous to last class, okay. Your neighbor, good morning guys, welcome. So the regular watchers, go ahead and leave me a like though, okay. And if you could care sharing with your friends, those who might be interested in this sort of approach, do that for me too. I'd be most thankful for that effort of yours. Okay, chalo. At Gulf of Khambat, now it has been found what? The vanadium has been found in a mineral called titanomagnetite or titanomagnetite, whichever you understand it, okay. So titanomagnetite is formed when molten lava cools rapidly. Therein are the two, see, these two facts are correlating what I just told you. That Gulf of Khambat, number one, actions of Narmada and Tapi, and number two, the basaltic flow that followed in the course of India's geological time scale. You know, this whole Deccan plateau that was formed, so you had the lava that was flowing, which means what? This was what it was. That lava cooled rapidly. Thus, you had these minerals that were found, and from therein, you are sourcing vanadium now. Good morning, Pranjal. Welcome. Okay. So the GSI, Geological Survey of India, under Ministry of Mines, okay, under Ministry of Mines, it has gone ahead, carried out extensive surveys. Now, scientists collected 69 samples from the Gulf of Khambat, and what they are saying, that they have been possibly drained from the Deccan basalts, mainly through the rivers of Narmada and Tapi. You see, exact correlation to what, say, the theories are regarding the formation of the Gulf of Khambat. Okay, once again, I'll repeat myself. Gulf of Khambat formed why? Because of this basaltic flow of the Deccan Plateau, and that was also deposited by the, say, actions of the rivers Narmada and Tapi, the two west-flowing rivers that flow through rift valleys, by the way. I hope I'm correct, guys. Let me know. Yes? So, therein you are finding vanadium. Now, let's look at the points of vanadium. What does it look like? So, it's a silvery metal, firstly. Okay, it's a silvery, you'll find it often, say, in small pebbles or in, say, dust form, okay. So it is the first report of vanadium occurrence in the offshore sediments of India. This Gulf of Khambat is the first time you're finding it off the coast. However, previously you have found it in, say, Arunachal Pradesh also, okay. So Arunachal Pradesh was the first instance of vanadium being found in, say, the land of India. Whereas this one, the Gulf of Khambat, is the first instance where it is being found outside the land, okay. So vanadium, a critical raw material, very, very important, you know why? First, understand what are critical materials or critical minerals in the Indian concept. Now, criticality is a time-specific concept. For example, this year, studying, say, 16 hours or 12 hours at least per day is critical for you. After you finish your attempts, no matter how much you study, that effort is non-critical. So, criticality is a time-specific concept, which means those minerals, those elements that are critical now, may not have been critical, say, 5-10 years earlier, or may not be critical, say 20 years down the line. Okay, so it's a critical raw material for strategic sectors such as defense and aerospace, and more importantly, its function as alloys. Okay, so we'll understand this. For instance, vanadium containing alloys of titanium and aluminum are used in jet engine and high-speed airframes. Okay, so this defense industry at a time when, say, India is looking at what? Defense indigenization. We are looking at building our own, say, supply chains, our own industry that will support our, say, armed forces. Now, I have told you in the past that, say, a battle or a war is never won in the first wave. You need better defense industry integration so that reinforcements arrive. For that, your industry needs to be prepared, and this is what is being done. The discovery of these elements, these minerals, being supplemented by the Government of India policy is also going to ensure. Now look at this. Why am I telling you this? The linkages, guys. Okay, this is no more a conversation about, say, just minerals now. It is also a conversation about what? Minerals being used where? In defense. Defense mein bhi kya chal raha hai? Defense indigenization, right? So where do you go ahead and get your defense indigenization, this market and army or, say, defense integration? Okay, for that you need this. So you have this being found in the Gulf of Khambat. Now it is also used for storing energy and in making critical electronic components used to make alloys. Three important, you have to understand: defense, aerospace, alloys. Okay. Now, going forward, the conversation around critical minerals in India is very important. First things first, there is no fixed definition or classification. Like I told you, in 1990s or, say, 80s, no one cared about lithium. Today, the world cares about lithium. Why? Suddenly, you have this industry that needs lithium as the raw material. Similarly, vanadium right now is demand. Why? Because, well, you are looking at upgradation of defense, your aerospace, much more, say, industry. Excuse me. Right? Which is why no fixed definition or classification. Mineral deposits with high economic vulnerability and high global supply chain risk. That's essentially a critical mineral. Excuse me. Right. So let's look at it. At a time when, say, you have this whole complete monopoly over these sorts of rare earth elements, okay, or, say, lithium and all of these. You have a group of countries only that have, say, large reserves of it. China is also one of those countries that has almost a near monopoly over rare earth elements, right? So what is the connotation of that? That unless and until you have, either you find your own, say, deposits within your territorial area of the country, or you have reliable supply chains that are all, say, different from China. That is the only two way you can go ahead and make sure that, say, you have access to these sort of elements and minerals, right? So this is the primary criterion, guys. High economic vulnerability and high global supply chain risk. This is a direct hint at the China angle, by the way. In fact, both of them are, So you must not, your supply chain must not be vulnerable. It should not depend on the whims and fancies of President Xi Jinping, essentially. Okay, that there should be a fair, inclusive, holistic manner, a trustworthy model wherein you are able to, say, source these elements for your industry. Yes or no? Right? So globally, you are looking at graphite, lithium and cobalt that are agreed upon as critical minerals. However, most nations have categorized critical minerals differently. In India's case, we have identified 30 of them. Okay. Major producers: Chile, Indonesia, Congo, China, Australia, South Africa. All right. Now, India released a list of 30 critical minerals. The list to be revisited periodically. Why? Because again, this, okay, no fixed classification. So we have had a new company, Khanij Bidesh India Limited, Kabil. Very, very important again. Make a note of this. That this is the institutional support being provided. Often talk about, say, the lack of institutions, dedicated institutions. Here is a dedicated institution called Kabil. Okay. Khanij Bidesh India Limited, that has been incorporated with the objective to what? Go ahead and identify and acquire overseas mineral assets. Extremely important. It will not just, say, look at India, but also look at the overseas. Looking for partners within where? In these countries. Obviously, you can exclude this part out, the rest of them. Okay. Now, you will see, say, the China government has its own business entity that also does this, which means India was lacking that particular dedicated organization so far. Now that is taken care of. However, what's required is that say Khanij or this Kabil, yes, Kabil we go ahead and given that sort of support that say the Chinese will give to their organization. After all, you are competing in a market, okay? Unless, so on one side, the Chinese might have say 100 rupees to go ahead and invest in say Chile. But if our fellows, if our company only has 5 rupees, that's an unequal ground. You can't compete there. What's the essence of the, what should be done then? Give them all the support that is needed. Eventually, if you are going to say secure a reliable supply chain amongst these countries too, you need to have your organization that is dealing with and competing within the international market to be at the same level, right? So a lot of monetary institutional support will be required for say Kabul, okay? It has engagements with countries like Argentina, Australia to acquire critical and strategic mineral assets. Very, very important again. This is say India's efforts to go ahead and collaborate and say, gain out of this whole industry, not just within its borders. Obviously, we are going and say GSI is doing that work, the Geological Survey of India, the research and development of that. Overseas also, we are looking at Kabul. Okay? So look at the critical minerals here. The 30 critical minerals and subgroups. Essentially your whole lanthanide series plus your vanadiums and the rest up there, okay? Just 30 of them. So you're looking at lithium, cobalt, nickel, vanadium, niobium, germanium. So the list is there, but understand, see where we are vulnerable here now. This is a vulnerability. Your import sources, and you will find one name that is almost common everywhere, okay? And not to single out a country per se, but then the contemporary geopolitical realities demand that India have alternate supply chains or go ahead and say first discover within its own territorial boundary. At the same time, have the major infrastructure that is needed to harness those minerals in a time-specific basis. It's not something that can be delayed for a decade. That's obviously need a lot of efficiency for that, which is why you find that organizations are coming up, policies are being drafted. This major flux that is happening in the energy sector, this mineral sector in India, must remain a very key area of concern and focus for you guys. All right. Okay, so we'll just have a look at the major import sources. Now, I would suggest at least lithium. You had a question this year on cobalt come. So know about lithium, cobalt, nickel, vanadium, especially these have been in the news again. Okay, have a look at, say, I've told you about the properties. I've told you about, say, the areas that they are found. Now, some more things that you ought to know. Okay, some more things that you probably ought to know. Let me have. Okay, so in terms of recent times, where else you are finding, say, vanadium in India? Firstly, I've told you that you're finding them in Arunachal Pradesh, okay, which was the first report of a primary deposit, first time ever. Second is this, obviously. Now, the problem is that we are a very large consumer of vanadium metal, but not a very significant producer of vanadium metal, right? So this is a very strategic development also. So we'll keep an eye on this and we'll go forward and take a look at these sorts of questions in the coming days too. Have a look at this. Recently, there has been a concern over the short supply of a group of elements called rare earth metals. Now, this was asked, I believe, just year to last, not very long ago by the civil service examination. Number one, China, which is the largest producer of these elements, has imposed some restrictions on their export. True or false? Statement 2. Other than China, Australia, Canada, Chile, these elements are not found in any country. True or false? Okay. Rare earth metals are essential for the manufacture of various kinds of items and there is a growing demand. Okay. Which of the above are correct? Today we discussed vanadium. Now understand this in a say equational form. Critical minerals, right? We are looking at rare earth elements, okay, rare earth elements plus the rest of the identified ones, okay. Rare earth elements, 17 of them, okay, 17 rare earth elements. Critical minerals in India or critical elements in India, whichever you look at it, 30 of them, and the rest are 13, okay. So you ought to know about each of them individually. Critical minerals that we discussed today, the question on rare earth elements, and I also suggest you go ahead and take a look. I'll be sharing the link of the PIB article on my Telegram channel. All right. Keep a very close eye on this topic, guys, not just from the prelims perspective, but also from the mains understanding. Let's look at this question. Which of the following rivers does not drain into the Gulf of Khambat. Okay, so I've told you, if this were to be your, this is your Saurashtra, this is your off the coast of Daman and Diu, this is your Gulf of Khambat. Okay, so you will tell me which of these rivers does not drain into the Gulf of Khambat? Narmada, Tapi, Sabarmati, Luni, Mahi. Right? No options there. Obviously, there's no point discussing options, given that 2023 completely blowed the whole notion of options out of the water. Okay. Statement 3, question 3. Sedimentary rocks containing significant enrichment in organic material are called as what? Carbonaceous sedimentary rocks. True or false? Okay. If you know where fossils are found, whether fossils are found in sedimentary, whether they are found in, can you find them in igneous, or do metamorphic rocks have, say, fossils? Straight away you will be able to answer this question for me. Okay. And phyllite is a fine-grained metamorphic rock formed by the recrystallization of fine-grained parent sedimentary rocks. So if you understand how metamorphic rocks are formed, if you have gone through your NCERTs and if you have seen, say there is two types of formation procedures. One is the contact formation and one is the region formation. If you understand the difference between these two, well, this question should be done easily. Okay, we'll discuss the answers to this and the concepts behind this in tomorrow's class. If you are unable to answer this, okay, it's time to go back to the NCERTs, right? Like we had go back to the Vedas, for you, it's go back to the NCERTs, right? These are very, very basic, nothing very special being asked here. Okay, so these are the two, say, discussions that I'm hinting at. Abhishek sir and myself, we were responsible for GS1. Our fellow colleagues, my co-faculties, were responsible for GS2, 3, 4. I would suggest go ahead and at least look at the discussion bit of all of them. You know, see the approach that is being taken to solving the questions, more so than the model answers that you will find across the board. Okay, especially for newcomers. The old comers might have, say, prejudices that might stop them from doing so. I've tried to address it on several times, but then for the newcomers, do it. You will find yourself at a very, like a absolute leveraged advantage. Why? Because you understand the way you're supposed to interpret information. UPSC is just not about rote anymore. You know, you look at the questions that I've told you about. So the questions on child cuddling, or the question on, say, suicides on women, climate change, aquifers, all of that, food security. The concepts that are getting asked require you to have linkages, unless and until you do not understand that a geography question is also a question on, say, economics, that you have an economics linkage, that you have an environment linkage, obviously, yes, then you are not going to write a complete answer. And then you are going to be very surprised when, say, you do not score up to your expectations. So go ahead, understand the thinking that you have to develop more importantly. Okay? So go ahead. These are the two discussions that I have, say, uploaded. They are available on the StudyIQ English channel under the live section, right? Okay, let's look at Community Forest Resource now, CFR. So of late, Forest Resource Act has been in the news. Okay, now question on this was also asked by the UPSC just a couple of years ago, And what the question was asking you to identify, say, which ministry is responsible for the implementation of that, which is why I always say, whichever policy you are reading, know the implementing agency. Okay, so we'll understand. We look at the question also and the concepts. First, understand what is CFR. Now, the common forest land that has been traditionally protected and conserved for sustainable use. The two keywords. Firstly, they are common to a village or a group of villages, and they can be used sustainably, which means you can't go ahead and, say, open a chai shop there. No, you can't do all of that. Yes, go ahead, use the, say, leaves that are fallen, use the products that are there. Why again? Because there is also a concept of traditional knowledge. I hope you guys know about this, traditional knowledge, right? And so traditional knowledge has to be conserved, which means what? You can't conserve it by limiting access. You have to give access, right? Only then that knowledge that is, say, by the sole ambit of these village communities that live on the edges of forest. They know a lot about the forest, more so than any researcher or biologist will ever know, which means that knowledge needs to be preserved, right? So you are looking at these working in conjunction. Why am I telling you this? The question might ask you about rights and knowledge together. That how are rights and knowledge supplemented by, say, the Indian Parliament? Is there a, say, divergence that, say, a particular law protects rights, but then another law, say, bars the flow of traditional knowledge, or does not, say, invite collaboration, scientific management? have an opinion, guys. You need to have analysis. Don't just, it's no more a question on resource. It's no more a question on forest. It's a question of forest rights, people's rights, knowledge. Okay. So let's look at it. The community or the group of people who are living on the edges of forest, the forest dwellers, if you were to so understand, the primary owners of the forest. So this community uses it to access resources available within the traditional and customary boundary of the village and for seasonal use of landscape. Okay. So you're looking at, say, primary form of grazing, not overgrazing, obviously. You can't go ahead and start grazing right up till the core zone of a tiger. Not allowed, obviously. You are putting not just the cattle at risk, also the owner of the cattle at risk, which means there is limited boundary. अंदर नहीं जा सकते उतना आप, पर go ahead, चारा तो खिला ही सकते हो भाई. Fine. You want to go ahead and say pick branches, twigs, trees, use as firewood. Fine. Right? You want to go ahead and get the leaves. Fine. Fish is not included in Schedule 1 of the Wildlife Protection Act. You can't go ahead and say kill a royal mahseer, obviously. But a local fish, least concern, go ahead. Enjoy. Realize, everything is practical. You don't need to remember. Okay. So each CFR area has a customary boundary. Realize this? You can't take your buffalo right up till the core zone. No. There's a boundary. Obviously. Makes sense. With identified landmarks recognized by the community, it may include forest of any category. So even in national park sanctuary, you are allowed community forest rights. Therein are your understanding first. Okay. So the question might ask you, say which of the following are not included in the community forest rights resource for villages or for villages, whichever. Okay. It's applicable in national parks. It's applicable in wildlife sanctuaries also, without doubt. Okay. Very important point, especially from the pre-perspective. Now look at the mains perspective that I have for you here. So what is community forest? Firstly, access. Okay. Then decision making. You should be a part of the decision making that is related to the access. It can't be that, say, the local DFO, the district forest officer, or the local MLA or the local MP is the final word. No. Eventually what you find is that for most of these rights, especially in the rural areas, it is the Gram Sabha that is the nodal agency. Yes? You realize this? Why? Because again, when local self-governance is the concept that we have to be absolutely seized of, that it is delegated responsibility. You are responsible for your forests. You have a huge say in how the forests are managed. Okay. So Gram Sabha is normally the nodal agency in this case. What do? They also receive value and benefits from the land, and obviously they are also responsible for conservation. What are the questions that can arise from here? So which of these are, say, the primary responsibility of the village or the forests? Okay. The villagers along the forest. Access, use, conservation. All three. Please know that. Okay. Management also is their responsibility. Gram Sabha, in fact, is the nodal agency up until now. Okay. Let's go forward. So community forest resource rights. Now you had the Forest Rights Act. Okay. Goes by a very long name, but the Forest Rights Act, the FRA. Now it provides for the recognition of the right to protect, regenerate, which is essentially conserve or manage. You see, all three have been discussed where? Here. This is where you're looking at. You're looking at protection, you're looking at management, and you're looking at, say, conservation. Yes, this is the primary responsibility. Who does it? The Gram Sabha. Okay. These rights allow the community to formulate rules for forest use by others and itself and others, and thereby discharge its responsibility. Local self-governance model. Okay. They can go ahead and decide that, okay, say this is my forest, this is the area in which you and I can't go ahead and make a resort. No. In fact, they also can't do ahead anything. This is pristine forest. Then they can go ahead and demarcate that, you know what, outsiders may not be allowed business entities at this and this place. If business entities have to be set up, it has to be done in participation with the village. Why? Primary owners of the land. It belongs to them. It's their traditional heritage, if you can understand it that way. Okay. So CFR rights along with community rights, Nistar rights, rights over non-timber forest produce, ensure sustainable livelihood of all community. Nistar rights are essentially what? Whatever you get from the forest, you can't go ahead and start selling it or bartering it. You can only use it. Okay. You can't use it for setting a commercial entity at all. You know, that overnight you become, say, like a sal leaf mafia. No. Sal leaf mafia, normally found. Sal leaves, immense use. Nowadays, the Westerners have come alive to that concept. Sustainable plates, apparently. Our people have been using it for ages. South Bengal, you will see. Yes. You will have Durga Puja, in which those sal leaves are the primary plates on which the famous khichdi of Durga Puja is eaten. Right? So nowadays you will find that being sold on Amazon for 500. People have been using it for ages. What is that? Nistar rights. That you can go ahead, use it for your own benefit, but not for commercial purposes. Okay. So these rights give the authority to the Gram Sabha, the nodal agency for delegation of or say application of these Forest Rights Act. Now, the problem arises where? The new guidelines have come up. Now they say that you have to go ahead and form a DPC, a district level committee, district level planning committee. Okay. Now this is going to say take part in the decision making of these areas. Okay. Now you can understand the problems. The new guidelines focus on the formulation of the district level committee, which entrusts Gram Sabhas of the community about wide rights over forest resources. So yes, you have the district level planning committee and the Gram Sabha. So you have gone and say made it a two-tier system now. But the problem is, you know who are the members of this. You know this. Acha, theek hai. These are my members of the Gram Sabha. But who are the members of the district planning committee is still not known. So you realize this. You have created a parallel body, which means firstly, it's going to infringe on the first rights of Gram Sabha. At the same time, you do not know who the members of this body are. Right? So again, huge area of say concern for activists, villagers, all alike. The primary criticisms of the new guideline that has been introduced. Okay. It is unclear who are going to be the members. That is not known. Okay. Now, allotted individual forest rights and CFR are 2% and 5% of the population respectively. What are individual forest rights? That you as a villager enjoy. Okay. And what are the forest rights of a community? That you as a group of villages or a single village enjoys. Okay. Say a single village is responsible for the management of such and such hectares. Okay. An individual, you can go ahead, say take your cow and your buffalo and your goat for say grazing, herding, whatever, fine, allowed. You know, the basic, say sustainable use of the forest at an individual level, allowed. Understand that? So this is 2 and 5% of the population respectively. Now, earlier it had been mentioned that 30% of the forest land will be falling under this, right? So this will be used for sustainably, this will be sustainable use by the villages. But now that number is nowhere near completion. So you are looking at what, 2 and 5% only, correct? So in a sense, that amount of land owned by the tribals continues to be reduced. The target is, like we have seen, net zero emissions target of 0 by 2070. Similarly, in this realm, you had the target that 30% of the forest land will fall under CFR, the community forest resource. But the latest research shows that it is nowhere near. It is in fact 2% for individual, 5% for villages. And with the creation of this parallel, say, district level planning committee, okay, or the DLC also it is called, DPC, DLC, whichever way. Different states have different names. The idea is the same. So the thing is that this is going to again hinder the progress of the Gram Sabha, the empowered Gram Sabha that we rely on to take the decisions on behalf of the villages. Well, that is going to be compromised in some manner or the other. Okay? So that is the whole concept of CFR, guys. Make a note of this because this is getting asked quite regularly. In fact, 2021, I believe this question is from PYQ. Okay, what you are going to do is answer these questions for me in the comment box. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4 ऐसे करके लिख के आप मुझे भेज देना. The right answers will get featured in tomorrow morning's class. Okay. So at the national level, which ministry is the nodal agency to ensure effective implementation of the Scheduled Tribes and Other Traditional Forest Dwellers Act, which is also known as the FRA, by the way, the Forest Rights Act. Okay. MOEFCC, Panchayati Raj, Rural Development, or Tribal Affairs. Okay. Let me know. I have mentioned this in my slide. You can find it uploaded on my Telegram channel, say around noon. Right? Okay, let's look at this question. First, where were they adopted, the CFR? Okay, very important. कहाँ हुआ था सबसे पहले? You ought to know. Okay, and CFR rights emphasize on the forest community's right to use, manage, and conserve forest resources. Identify the correct statements. Right? You will see these questions will fill in the knowledge gaps that may so exist. Plus, at the same time, you will have familiarity with the subject. You know, I always say this. सिर्फ article मत पढ़ो. सवाल बनाओ उससे. ठीक है? चलो, let's move forward. Okay. So this is where you connect with me, okay? If you have any particular doubts related to this whole discussion, or if you'd like to go ahead and say further engage with me on any particular topic related to civil services, I am available. Right, the last topic of the day, epizootic hemorrhagic diseases, EHD. Thank God this is one of those diseases that we are not getting, by the way. As humans, we are safe for the time being. First things first. Okay, this is an inter-animal sense of disease only. It has not yet transmitted to us folks. Okay, EHD has caused more than 150 outbreaks happening in the European area for a change, right? The disease affects cows, deer and sheep and is transmitted by midges that carry the virus. Understand midges as say flies, but larger flies, okay? So these flies or these insects are essentially responsible for the transmission of this disease, which means they are the vectors of this disease, okay? So it's a vector-borne disease related to animals. It has not so far come to us humans, okay? Caused virus belongs to the orbivirus genus, not important to remember because I know you will not remember this also. But understand how. It is primary. Transmission you have to know, okay? You may not be asked this, but this for sure you can be asked. So transmission is caused how? Through the bites of the infected midges. These insects, yes? So they go ahead, firstly bite say a reservoir, thereafter carry that particular virus within themselves. They are immune to the virus, nothing happens to them. But when they go ahead and bite another animal, poor fellow is hurt. Poor fellow is infected with EHD. Okay, and thus you have this one midge that goes and bites say 10 of them. So obviously insects hai to population to zyada hi hoga. So they go ahead and bite the whole population of cattle. Cattle gets EHD. Cattle develop symptoms, productivity reduces, food security also affected. Eventually why? Because you are looking at what kind of animals? Cows. So if cows are affected, which means firstly your milk production gone. Milk production gone, matlab food security gone, bye-bye. Malnutrition, all of that will follow. But in this case, because it is in Europe, so the food security may be disregarded. Had it been, say, in Africa or in, say, a poor country in Asia, that would have been a natural correlation. Okay? So EHD primarily affects ruminant animals. What are ruminant animals? You must have seen, no? Normally you will see on a hot summer day, a cow standing in the middle of the road, okay, chewing something. Even though there is no grass nearby, what is it chewing? So what do these cows do? They take in the grass and then they have this ability to go ahead and bring it back later for effective chewing, okay? So wherever you find a large forage of grass, a large segment of grass, they'll quickly go ahead, collect all of it, and then for better digestion, after that they'll chill around and then they'll start to chew it and then finally digest it, okay? So that is the process of rumination. So rumination animals, cattle, deer, sheep and goats. Another question. Which animals are capable of rumination? These four, by the way. Okay. Elephants, no. The symptoms of EHD can vary in intensity depending on the severity of the infection. More importantly, because again it is affecting animals. Yes. So you're looking at the food security angle that should be included in this conversation. For sure. Okay. Any discussion on say this animal productivity, health has to compulsorily include the discussion on food security from the mains perspective. You must have seen this year's paper. Okay, if you haven't seen, if you have no idea of what I'm talking about, see the GS1 paper. See how it is to be approached. And if you are not aware of this, you will never start reading articles differently. You will read articles, think ho gaya kaam, but nahi hoga kaam. ठीक है? Okay, let's look at this question. Consider the following statements regarding EHD. A non-vector-borne disease. Can it be classified as a zoonotic disease? Something we have discussed extensively in this series. You know, we are coming close to 100 classes, by the way. Okay, 100 classes of editorial edge. And I think at least in 4 to 5 classes, I have spoken and discussed questions and the concept of zoonotic diseases. So is it a zoonotic disease or not? And does any cure exist for the treatment of EHD? Yes or no? Okay, you will let me know the correct statements. Right, so that concludes today's discussion, but let's look at the questions from the last class, okay? Because that's what we always do. I give you questions, you solve them. If you get correct, good. If you don't get them correct, look at the approach, look at the answers. So the last class questions. Conventional computers process information in binaries, 0 and 1. Yes, we discussed this. Quantum AI in qubits, correct. And the third question, currently there is no singular policy for QAI in India. Now, many of you had given me varied answers for this. Please understand, we have a mission on AI. Okay, we have a mission on AI. In fact, a national mission on AI is underway. We have also got a larger policy focus on QAI. But there is no singular policy. Okay, there is no clarity in thought of say what is the approach of Government of India for QAI. Okay, there are varied documents, but none of them are considered to be the central focus. So that is one of the primary say areas of concern in the coming days, that the policy needs to be well defined. Okay, so the incorrect statement here being none. Okay, none of the above are incorrect. Okay, QAI, where does it find say application? Okay, quantum AI, by the way, quantum artificial intelligence. If you do not know what quantum artificial intelligence is, go and look at the class of September 15th. Okay, September 15th, 2023, early morning editorial edge. We discussed the entire concepts of quantum AI, quantum artificial intelligence. Again, emerging tech, developing tech. As civil service aspirants, you should at least have an idea what is it about, even if you do not know the physics and the maths and the whole technology behind it. Okay. So, Genome India project, climate change prediction, military and cyber security, player selection for sports. Will you benefit if you apply QAI in the above? For example, in yesterday's pitch, you had Mohammad Siraj who went ahead and like completely just finished the game in like 30 minutes. Okay. Would QAI have helped, say, the Sri Lankan team prepare better if they had, say, gone ahead and looked at the, say, precipitation conditions, the wind conditions, the humidity conditions, and the effect of the pitch on it? Okay. Would they have selected to probably not bat first and bowl first? Probably. Okay. Then this is the application of QAI. So all four. Okay. Next, net zero emissions refer to the balance of CO2 in the atmosphere. Now, one question again that many of you got incorrect. Okay. It's not about just CO2. It is about the greenhouse gas emissions. All of them. Okay. You know which are the GHGs. Okay. Many of you got this incorrect. So this is incorrect. India plans to achieve net zero status by 2070, correct. Net zero emissions is also known as carbon neutrality, correct. So the correct statements here being 2 and 3, or B and C. Okay, which of the above are zoonotic diseases, which means that they can be transmitted from animals to humans? Rabies, COVID, SARS, MERA, all of the above. Okay? Good answers, by the way. So many of you answered this very correctly. Right, so these are my individuals: Ulfat, Hirak, Shubham. In fact, Shubham's answer I've been impressed by his answers. He's almost on a regular basis got almost all of the questions correct. So well done, Shubham. Okay. Pooja, Asha, Akhil, coder obviously has been a regular and I've been happy with his progress. Very, very good coder. You have been doing extremely well. Mandeep too. I've been looking at your answers and I see this positive trajectory in your answers, guys. You know, initially you had, say, out of the 7 questions, you started with, say, 3 incorrect, 4 incorrect. Nowadays, I find it's come down to almost 0 or 1, which is good, because the progression is there to be seen. So keep it up, you know, keep at it and keep it up. Good. I'm happy. Kalyan, well done again. Karuna, Lekam has been a regular. Thank you for joining, Lekam. Good. Your neighbor, Aditya, Akshay, Rahul, Abhishek. These fellows message me their answers on email. So I've been asking them, go ahead, send me on YouTube, but they refuse to, but fine. Whichever way is beneficial for you. As long as you keep engaging and learning, that's the primary focus here. Okay. So that completes today's class. If you found today's class beneficial, do not hesitate to leave me a like, okay? These are the primary happiness, the small happiness that an educator gets. And if you have any particular feedback for me, right, go ahead and leave me a comment too. And join my Telegram group, okay? You'll find the PDF uploaded there. And my Instagram ID is open for any questions, any doubts, any help that you may say require, okay? All right, I'll see you tomorrow morning, 6:30 a.m. with another set of topics. Till then, have a more productive day than I will. Bye.